Welcome to Borderline Furniture. I'm Mara, and this is my insane Lane cedar chest flip. I created this flip as part of the unique antique challenge hosted by Krystal at the Krafty Creech and co-hosted by Lavonne at Statement Designs. This round is the embellishment challenge, and for me, that meant going all in, but using real tack. This chest was pretty rough on the outside, but surprisingly beautiful on the inside, which is honestly typical for the Lane Hope chests that I've worked on over the years. If you're not familiar with Lane, they were the name in cedar chests for decades. These were graduation gifts, wedding gifts, you're starting your life gifts, so almost everyone's grandma had one. The cedar interiors are usually gorgeous, but the exteriors, they've lived through moves and basements, storage units, and some questionable repair attempts, which makes giving them a new life incredibly satisfying. Before anything else, I always start with a thorough cleaning. Something can look clean, but the moment you hit it with degreaser, the truth comes out. There were several spots where the veneer was damaged, peeling, or missing. My go-to trick for peeling or water-damaged veneer is simple. You wet it, you let it get soft, you slide the glue underneath, and then you clamp it down. Using parchment paper keeps the glue from sticking to the clamped surfaces. For the areas where the veneer was completely missing, I used PC Woody. It's a 2-part filler that cures incredibly strong. Cure time takes longer than Bondo, but in my opinion it's worth it, especially on the edges where the lid meets the front of the chest. PC Woody cures very hard, but it's no match for this sander. Now the veneer on both sides of this lid was toast. I had a few options. I could buy new veneer, I could create a faux leather look with some raised stencils, or I could go more authentic. So I decided to go with real hide. And stay tuned because I'm going to share some tips on how to buy leather at discounted prices. I also ran into this rubbery glue. I think it's some kind of Gorilla Glue, and it just doesn't work for wood repairs. I prefer Titebond products because when they're used correctly, the joint is often stronger than the original. And of course, I found way too many nails here. Nails rarely fix structural issues in furniture like this. I like to keep it simple, just wood glue and clamps. The top was full of scratches, which isn't surprising, and since I'm planning to gel stain, I needed to remove the scratches very carefully without blowing through the veneer. My Surf Prep sander was a lifesaver for the curved edges. For stain, I'm using Kona Gel Stain by Varathane. Gel stain is basically a mix of paint and stain, and it's great for situations where the sander has blown through the veneer, or more correctly, where the operator of the sander has blown through the veneer. It doesn't always work, but it works more often than not, and it gives you a beautiful, even finish. My plan all along was to remove the bottom piece, and I left it on during all the repairs so the flat base wouldn't get damaged while I worked. Before bringing this inside for paint, I removed the locking mechanism. Lane actually had a recall on their locks because they could automatically latch shut. In the settlement, Lane agreed to replace them, and I was able to get a replacement on a previous project, using the serial number stamped on the bottom. The replacement took about 6 to 8 months to arrive, and honestly, the quality wasn't as good as the originals, but safety comes first. Before applying my decoupage paper, I needed a clean white background. I didn't expect any bleed through, but of course it happened. So back outside it went for a coat of shellac, another coat of paint, and then I did a layer of polyacrylic to seal the paint before decoupage. When it comes to decoupage, I stick to the method that has never failed me. And yes, stick to it is unintentionally hilarious. I use Roman Pro 543 wallpaper paste. There's another version that's more cellulose-based, but I don't love that one. I place a weight in the center of the paper and work from the middle outward. Misting the paper first prevents that awful wrinkling you get when dry paper hits wet paste. Then I apply a thin layer of paste and then work in small sections, always pushing the air bubbles and the wrinkles toward the edges. I sealed the edges with paint, but blending them on this piece was such a struggle. I tried using DAP crack or grain filler, and it did help, but I had to hand sand very carefully to avoid tearing the paper. I think the DAP method has some potential, and I'm going to experiment with a couple of tricks to perfect it. Decoupage edges are always a challenge. The blending on this image was intense, and then suddenly it wasn't. I stepped back to check my progress, and it was perfect. I've had one traumatic blending experience in the past, and now I procrastinate blending until the last possible second. It gives me so much anxiety. And now for the leather tip. Order from the leather guy, and you'll get a plain brown box that looks just like this. And if you're lucky, you'll also get a heart sticker that says special delivery so that your spouse can interrogate you about what you bought. In reality, they'll sell scrap leather for cheap, and if you need something specific, they offer a minimal hand-pick fee. I gave them my color preferences, dimensions, and told them that it needed to match a dark stain, and they nailed it perfectly. Knives are not my strong suit, but the hide was easy to cut. I used a metal straight edge and a quilting ruler for accuracy, and yes, the tape does look ridiculous, but I didn't mess up a single measurement. To attach the hide, I used Barge all-purpose cement. It's the classic leather workers adhesive. It's extremely strong and extremely smelly, so this should have been done outside. Both the leather and the wood need a coat of cement. After about 15 minutes, the cement turns tacky, and once those two tacky surfaces touch, they're bonded for life. It's kind of the same principle as laminating a countertop. My horses were looking a little lonely, so I added leather embellishments to the front. And at first I tried doing my own tooled leather, which was an epic fail. Whether it was my tools or my skills, I'm not sure. I bought some embossed leather from Hobby Lobby, but it was pretty thin and cheap looking. So I bonded it to the veg tan leather from my failed tooling attempt, and suddenly I had pieces that looked genuinely saddle-worthy. With the addition of stirrup straps, furniture tacks, and conchos, the front of this lane chest went from plain Jane to rodeo roundup. For the sides, I used authentic stirrup straps again, horseshoes, and a tiny rustic star that I already had on hand. For the front, I used a real belt buckle. At first I didn't think it would work, but after a long session of hammering, I reshaped it to fit the curve of the lid. The conchos were a bit tricky too. They had a raised center piece for a screw that had to be ground off so that they would sit flat. That part was very time-consuming. Years ago, I bought 4 casters on clearance at Hobby Lobby and never realized that I didn't have the matching swivel set. Well, thankfully, I found a close match on Amazon, and it really does complete the look. After reinstalling the locking mechanism to fill the empty hole in the front, I removed the top latch from the lid to prevent it from inadvertently locking. After all, there was a safety recall. And since all of the hardware has been installed, that means it's time for the final reveal. So this was my hopeless hope chest before, and now for the insane part. end of the Insane Lane Makeover. Thanks to Krystal and Lavonne for hosting this challenge. Please visit the playlist, and as always, thanks for watching!